We do not need to pick up things. In fact, we need to do less and take things off of our plate. It's all right to delegate. And I finally realized that my worth is not tied to my productivity.
It's time to build wealth with less hustle and more self-care.
Listen in as real estate investors, Rihanna, that's me,
and Caitlin, that's me,
help you get invested while staying rested.
Let's do this thing.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to Invested and Rested. We are so excited to have you here today. With us is Joanna, and she's with us here today talking about how real estate brought her freedom and saved her from burnout from her corporate job.
Yeah, and she also told us all about this hack that she has, that instead of spending her life savings on her kids' summer camp, she's doing this instead. And listen all about it. And it actually inspired Rihanna and I, and we're already making plans for summer next year.
Yes.
Listen into this episode and hear all the things she shares. It's so helpful, especially if you are in a career that is burning you out, especially if you are ready to retire from your W-2. She's got a lot of great things in here. So can't wait for you to listen.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, and Joanna, for being on our podcast today, Invested and Rested. You have such an amazing story to share with us, and I'm so excited to share it with the listeners here. I think that there's just so many good takeaways that are going to come out of this. So if you wouldn't mind just getting started, telling us a brief overview of what your journey was and what got you to this spot today.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. I am really looking forward to sharing my story because I'm incredibly passionate about helping other women, more specifically, other moms, navigate new motherhood and burnout and just surviving life, or maybe even going from trying to survive to learning how to thrive. I think it's very much a learned skill. My name is Joanna Berry. I live in Atlanta with my 5 and 7-year-old kids and my husband, Daryl. And I've been investing in real estate since 2017. I was able to retire from my corporate job after 13 years. Majority of that was spent in the medical device and biotech industry. And eventually my side hustle became the hustle. And so I'm really excited about this pivot. I didn't expect that it would be a full-time shift. And now it is. And so I have a lot more time freedom and I'm able to focus on what all of this looks like. I do want to add the caveat that I did not replace my corporate income. I have my basic bills like to live. So I guess some people have different definitions of financial independence or financial freedom, and what even is financial freedom or all of that. So
I so appreciate the transparency on that. You're right. I think that means something different to everybody, and everyone makes assumptions as well based off of what people's stories are. Maybe someone, has a picture next to a Ferrari, or they're going on trips or whatever it may be. And that doesn't mean that just today's version is going to also be your forever version. But this is what was able to get you out of corporate and get you out of that burnout spot.
Yes. Well, and I think that it's not always apples to apples, and really digging into the metrics. How are we quantifying? One, is it time? Or two, even, you see these people next to their Ferraris, or I have 300 doors and I have this, $1 zillion net worth. And it's like, okay, what's your liquidity and what percentage owner are you of all these doors, right? And how much time do you have to actually be with your family and do the things that you love? Because if you're burning the wick from both ends, I'll tell you right now, there is no wealth without health, period.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's what we're here for. So what does financial freedom look like to you? I mean, what is it now, and what do you want it to be in the future?
So I think the key word for me is freedom. right? So if we look at all of our bills, what is our income against our expense? And so for a long time, I thought it meant buying Louis Vuitton bags and going to the Gucci store and coming out with, 6 purses. And now I've sold half of those bags because I never wore them. And I realized that I was compensating for time lost. Like I was not present at all. And so I had this little dopamine hit. So now I want to be able to have the peace of mind, like literal peace, not a piece of the pie, peace of mind to be able to enjoy my life and be present. I enjoy working. To me, being a stay-at-home mom was never really appealing because of, I have an ADHD, and if I had to just not have some sort of mental stimulation, it would be really challenging for me. So now, in my current state, I have, I guess, financial independence. The bills are paid, right? But I'm still working in my real estate business. I think ultimately financial freedom is when it's like really passive and you don't have to continue to do the things. And, I think when I get to the point where I'm able to scale my portfolio and hire an in-house property manager and have somebody else doing all of the things, that for me would be the next level. For now, we're not there, but that's the direction that I see this going.
Awesome. I know what you mean about freedom, because it's like I was a property manager and now I'm not. And it's like, it does feel like I still have my regular job, but it does feel like a little piece of freedom when you have somebody else doing a little bit bigger piece of it for you.
Well, I think that's a big part of life and business in general. So people ask me time and time again, how do you do it all? And I'm like, well, I'm hanging on by a thread. So I don't know if I'm quite doing it all. Yeah. But I will say everything that I implemented in my business, I implemented in my home life. So I can give you a few examples. And this has helped me immensely. But, perhaps you've read Who, Not How, but taking that to the next level. So when I was, a working mom, although we are all working moms, so I put that in quotations, mm-hmm. I was traveling almost every single week in my corporate job. I was completely gone. So I'm like, okay, I need to focus on what is going to make me money and what is going to bring me joy. I am not going to spend any time on doing laundry. I didn't go to a grocery store for literally years. I had the cleaners come. They still come every 2 weeks. I am not going to do those things. I recognize that is a privilege, but that is also a cost. So I look at it as an investment in buying my time back.
You're the one that inspired me I now pay my cleaners to fold our laundry, because to me, it wasn't about like putting them in the machines, but I hate having like a giant pile of laundry. So thank you for that. Yes. I don't fold laundry anymore.
Well, and think about how much time and just brain space that gives you back. I love Eve Rodsky. She wrote a book called Fair Play. There are a number of books on the topic, All the Rage, Fed Up. I think everybody can collectively agree if they're in a cis hetero relationship, the woman is typically the default parent and ends up in turn carrying the mental load. And there's been more of a push for the equitable division of domestic labor, but it wasn't always like that. And I got to a point where I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm not doing all of this extra stuff. Why? And I wasn't getting anywhere trying to explain that to my husband. And I knew he was capable because he was a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years when our kids were small. It's like, well, did you forget? And so I literally made an Excel sheet of every single task. Laundry, whatever. How long did it take? And then I took my hourly billable rate based on my corporate salary and plugged it in. I'm like, unless you are willing to pay me to do these things, they're not going to get done. But we came together and established what can be outsourced. What do you do? What do I do? And that really helped a lot. So just focusing on efficiency and outsourcing, even buying in bulk. I don't know if you ever go to like the dollar store I buy bulk, like thank you cards. I buy bulk birthday cards. I have a whole stack of bags, different shapes, sizes for both kids and adults, tissue paper. If I go to Walmart, I'll buy like 10 kids presents so that when the birthday party actually comes up, great. You're getting a dinosaur and you're getting a dinosaur and you're getting a dinosaur.
That's such a good idea. I'm like Saturday morning running to Target a half an hour before the stupid birthday party and then trying to wrestle my 4-year-old to not buy a present or 3-year-old.
Well, and then they want everything. But I think it comes down to being able to analyze, how can I go from from defense to offense? And how can I go from being reactive to proactive?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your corporate job. And, we know you've been healing from burnout. So kind of what got you to this complete stage of burnout, and how you've been healing from it as well, and how real estate helped you heal in that.
Real estate was ultimately my savior. I don't think that I would have been able to walk away from my corporate job otherwise. My husband left his corporate job first in the fall of 2022. And so we very much relied on my income and health insurance, et cetera. When my son, who's now 7.5, was an infant, my husband was laid off. I had just had a baby. I was on maternity leave, and my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'm like, oh my God, now what? I am the sole financial provider. We're moving to a different city, and I just didn't even know what to do. And so I remember going to a real estate conference a few years prior, learning about real estate investing. It kind of refreshed my memory from reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad 20 years prior. And I made it a point. I'm going to buy a property. It's going to be a duplex, and we'll live in one side and rent the other. And I said, how can I hack my way through life? How can I take some of these things off of my plate and some of that financial responsibility? And real estate really was the answer. Once I got comfortable with house hacking and going through this process, how do you write a lease? What do you do if the toilet backs up? All of these different things. I was able to go through that proof of concept right in my backyard, if you will, is so close. And so as I developed these SOPs and understood that, wow, this does work, I finally had the courage to purchase my first out-of-state rental. I've still never been there. In all fairness, I did buy that house in 2018 for $10,000. It was bank owned.
Wow.
We put $15,000 into the renovation. And it's the same tenant has been there ever since. His rent was $595. It's now, I think, $700. Great tenant, takes care of the property. But we did
$700 a month off of $25,000.
That's amazing.
We did end up doing a BRRRR and pulled out $69,000. So it's like,
wow,
that really solidified real estate works, right? Yeah. I don't know if we're going to see interest rates again in the twos, and I don't know if we're going to be buying $10,000 bank-owned houses that aren't, condemned. Mm-hmm. But if we look at historically, the cost of goods 30 or 60 years ago, it's only going to go up. So At this juncture, I think that it is a necessity for people to have additional sources of income, whether it's their side hustle, whether it's an Etsy shop, whether it's real estate, it doesn't matter, but it's no longer enough to survive on just our salaries, at least not long term. For me, I knew it was time to throw in the towel when I began fainting at work. And I was on a work trip. I was flying from Atlanta to the West Coast to Canada, it was crazy. And we had gone through for a biotech startup. It was about 100 employees ish. But we went through so many rounds of layoffs. And so I previously had reported to the VP, gracious man, one of the best leaders I've ever worked for. He volunteered to resign to preserve more of our jobs, which was fantastic. And initially I had this appreciation to learn a new skill and to take on more responsibility. But as they continued to lay more people off, the resources became extremely lean, but the workload remained the same. And so trying to do all of these things, I'm reporting to, our chief commercial officer, also a fantastic leader, probably one of the best I've ever worked for. But then he got laid off. And so I'm reporting to the CEO. I have zero support in ability to continue to do my job. And I remember being, in the parking lot. I just walked out of UC Davis Medical Center, and I started fainting, and it just kept happening. And my body was telling me to take a break. My title and compensation was not commensurate with what I was doing. And not that the money would have made it better, but I mean, maybe it would have.
Maybe
but I realized,
short-term Band-Aid.
Maybe. But I realized I was going at a pace that was not sustainable, especially with long haul travel. Like when you're flying in different time zones, I applaud people who are able to do it. That was not me.
Especially with 2 babies at home too, like so much. Just the pressure of, going to all these different time zones, coming home, being a parent, I'm sure the mental overload was just so much.
In a lot of ways, the work travel saved me. I had really bad postpartum anxiety and depression both times. So having like the opportunity to sleep in a hotel and be absolved of any sort of parental responsibilities really helped. To be completely transparent, it was really nice. It did get to the point though, it was like, well, for so long I aspired to reach the sea level, and I thought that, this external validation would change how I feel. And it just didn't. And in my last role, seeing what the CEO was going through, I'm like, man, this sucks. I don't want anything to do with this. And I'm never going to get this time back. So, I learned, I'm like, I literally need to schedule a break. I need to schedule my self-care. I need to put that on the calendar, because how else am I gonna keep from collapsing? Like one time I fell over backwards and somebody caught me. I'm like, this is your body, my body, telling me something's got to give, something needs to change. And so ironically, when I took a leave of absence, I stopped fainting. It was very bizarre.
Ironic how that works out.
So weird.
And I feel like there's way too many times, and it's so common. I mean, I know that it's happened to me too in different ways. I didn't faint, but that people, they keep pushing themselves to that limit where their body needs to tell them to stop, instead of knowing in their gut, in their head, that it's time to quit or to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're on that other side where you're not working in your corporate job. Spoiler alert, you're leaving tomorrow, right? To go to Europe for 6 weeks.
7
weeks. Oh, that's so amazing. So yeah, this version of financial freedom doesn't look so bad in comparison to even where you want to go.
So this is interesting. I love my children. Being away from them probably did save my life in a lot of ways, especially when my sister passed away and I was trying to manage all of the real estate, like having this out-of-state rental and just surviving through the day. But I knew that I wanted to not just survive, but I wanted to thrive, right? I also don't want to feel like I am being questioned constantly for my dedication to my work. The job and the space that I was in is all performance based, all numbers, very easy to quantify and measure. And despite being a top performer for so long, people are just always, oh, well, who's watching the kids? And are you going to, whatever the rhetoric was. And it was so infuriating. I'm like, first of all, especially the last 2 summers, I'm like, camp is so fucking expensive. I am literally paying to be here at work, and you have the audacity to question my fucking dedication. Like, what are we even talking about? This is crazy. And so part of this whole Europe thing is, one, I'm Polish. I've seen my family once in the last 20 years. I want my kids to see that. But 2, cost savings. most corporate jobs will give you 2 weeks off at best that they don't even encourage you to take at the same time. It's usually split up a couple days here and a couple days there. And families will spend thousands of dollars to go to Disneyland or Disney World or, whatever you're into.
Are you interested in real estate investing but not quite sure where to start? Or maybe you already own some properties but not sure what to do next? Or are you considering changing your investing strategy from long-term to short-term or single family to multifamily? Well, let us help.
From now until June 30th, we're running a promotion for one-off coaching sessions. Get personal attention to help make those investing dreams a reality with either Caitlin or Rihanna as your coaches. Grab a single session for $100 or one session with each of us for just $150. Go to investedandrested.com for more information. Again, that's investedandrested.com.
And then they're spending all of this money to put their kids in camp that you have to get on a wait list like 5 years prior, like before. Like we had to get on a wait list for daycare. Like the minute I got pregnant with my son, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So let me break down some numbers for you. And this is really a big piece of the freedom. And this is a different real estate strategy, a completely new one for me. But when we look at short-term rental or midterm rental, any kind of Airbnb type situation, I had no idea how lucrative it was. And I had this inspired action to look it up. I'm like, well, what if? I've been playing a lot with the what if, what would this look like? And I just did a search of like, if we rented out our house, what could the income be for that? I'll tell you what, it's going to pay for our trip. And not only is it going to pay for our trip, we're going to save a shitload of money because we're not paying for childcare because it's literally more expensive than our mortgage. And so, it's when you factor in all of these different variables, to me, that's freedom to be able to be location independent. Like I self-manage my properties as long as I have an internet connection and my phone. I have, bought my $50 little international plan yesterday to be able to accept calls, but that's it. So that is location independence and the ability to go because the system, and I don't want to get all into bashing America, but the system is inherently broken, and I think anybody who is a woman can appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah. And as someone that's lived abroad in Europe and seen a completely different system that works swimmingly, I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But I'm glad that you've taken this opportunity and are gonna go. I mean, as I just paid for $2,000 worth of camp for 1 month for my 7-year-old. I don't know why I'm getting my age. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I was looking at that. I was like, wow, I'm pretty much paying, or the work that I'm doing this summer is going straight to camp. Pretty much it.
And $2,000 is a steal, which it's, and I assumed that things would be more accessible and affordable in Atlanta, but one of my friends for 2 kids for 1 month is paying $4,800.
I believe it, because I'm not even doing the extra aftercare and the, all those. I'm like trying to save a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes like 4,000 for 2, but it's crazy.
For me going on this journey too, I'm still healing from my burnout. It's not gone. Like, yes, I stopped fainting, which is great.
Step 1 done.
Step 1, stop fainting. But step 2 is listening to my body and understanding, why do you want to stay in your job? Do you love your job? What do you love about your job? Most of the time it's out of necessity, right? I mean, food is not free, but what if there's another way?
I really like your what if mantra today.
Yeah.
Yeah, but real estate was the other way. And it was it was my parachute that helped me and saved me. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about sharing how to step by step how women can get started investing in real estate and leverage their W-2 so they have that fuck you money. It's like, I don't like my boss. Great. See ya. I'm out of here. That's very liberating. And it's whether it's I've friends who were in abusive relationships, unfortunately, and they were stuck. And I think that as women, we need to find a way to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. What were some of the steps you took to heal?
Whew. I have, I think I sent like a list of like 25 things to Rihanna.
All amazing, by the way.
Like, where do I start? So let me pull up my list here because I'm
Top
like,
3
what?
or 5.
Yes. So de-stress versus eustress. So if somebody's in distress, that's all of the check engine lights are going off at the same time. Typically, if you've reached burnout, that's where you're at. You're like, holy shit, something's wrong. I'm fainting. I have a friend who was having like recurrent, she was my best friend, she's a lawyer, she was presenting to the emergency room with like, she thought she was having heart attacks. Like, it was very scary. So de-stress is bad stress. Eustress is the complete opposite of that. So if you think about like your zone of genius, right? This is actually a healthy kind of stress. When you are in the zone, you're doing something you love, something you're passionate about. And if you're able to harness that and focus on being in that creative zone. So like Csikszentmihalyi talks about flow and how you can do what you love, right? I also feel like it's important to say that not every hobby or whatever needs to be monetized or turned into a side hustle. It is okay, more than okay, to differentiate between work and play. And I think sometimes people get caught up and add additional stress to their lives because they're like, oh, I'm not passionate about what I do. But it pays the bills, and that's okay. So what if you have this income, but it also affords you the time to do your hobbies or things that actually fill your cup? For me, the 3 things that helped me get through my burnout was I took a very Marie Kondo approach to my entire life, and both in my physical and mental reality, and understanding what was draining my energy. I very quickly identified my corporate job was very high on that list. But I also, cleared out, the shit in the barn or whatever, like stuff that was no longer serving me. It was not bringing me joy. And unfortunately, part of that was cutting ties with some people in my life that I just no longer had the capacity to engage with. It's challenging. Sometimes you can love somebody, but also recognize that they've got to figure things out for themselves. And especially when I was in a place of like drowning, it wasn't very, it wasn't good for anybody, really. So what can you remove from your life that doesn't, what doesn't serve you? I think too, setting boundaries. I was never good at setting boundaries until literally a year ago. And so whether it was a work project or a friend or a family member, I took a lot of things on voluntarily. Like, nobody asked me to do these things, but I like really wanted the kudos and I really wanted the high five, and I wanted people to think that I was this sweet helper. And it's like, what the fuck is that? Like, people pleasing. Like, no, we do not need to pick up things. In fact, we need to do less and take things off of our plate. It's all right to delegate. And I finally realized that my worth is not tied to my productivity. And that was a big thing. So anyhow, I think, with work, it's like, all right, well, if somebody asks you to do something, whether it's, let's say, your boss, well, okay, I'm already working on X, Y, and Z. How would you like me to prioritize? And let them figure it out. That's, unless you're the boss, and well, then, talk to your therapist, I guess. I think just understanding too that life is going to life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced a tremendous amount of loss. My mom and sister both passed of cancer. You know, we've moved more times than I can count. You know, started new jobs, gone completely different in this career path. That's not uncommon. Literally every single person on this planet is going to experience these type of life events. And I don't think that we can rainbow and butterfly, good vibes only our way out of that. I think, in fact, we're gaslighting ourselves when we focus on this toxic positivity. We don't want to dwell in it. We don't want to sit in the shit. But I think how can we regulate our central nervous system while these things are going on? And we have to figure out what that looks like before we hit the burnout. And so I made a list. What are things that I enjoy doing? What are my hobbies? What makes me feel good inside? Like where's the socket for me to plug in?
What energizes you?
So for me, community is really important. And I feel really full and really happy when I can sit down and have a cup of coffee or tea with a friend. That's big. You know, not necessarily to commiserate, but there's something really magical about sitting with a girlfriend who can see you and hear you and validate your experience and your existence, especially when the world at times can feel like it's full of chaos. Anything as it relates to moving my body. My number one go-to is lifting very heavy weights so I can reduce my road rage. But because I just had a mastectomy, which was preventative, I can't lift weights. So I've been focusing more on slower, more mindful practices like yoga. I've been dancing, just like put my headphones on and like went in my yard and was like dancing and sweating and the sun was on me, and that
sounds
movement,
magical.
magical. Like just the, you know, we're not going to the club anymore. Like I don't even know if they let my ass in.
I want to go to one of those daybreaker ones where it's like 9 a.m. I'm like, that's my time of day.
Yes, that should be a thing. Like a
we need more day
franchise.
clubs.
Yeah.
I know Caitlin teaches some health practices just like that too with health coaching, is making a list, like you said, Joanna, of things that you love. What are some self-care things you love? What are some hobbies that make you feel free? And it's on my list of things to do too. I have a list, but I want to laminate it and make it look all pretty. So it's like, okay, when you're starting to feel super overwhelmed and you can't think and you're just so discombobulated that you just forget about it. And it's like, great, then it's there.
Your menu.
My menu. Yes, that's the word. Thank you. Thanks, Coach.
I have a document that is laminated. Well, I laminated it a couple of years ago, but I found it. It was written in 1994 by Bill Berger or Bob Berger. I don't know. But I found it in my mom's things. And it says the recipe for a perfect day. And it basically says like focusing on gratitude. Like what are, you know, a few, like it's like helpful guides or tips on like what you can do for just that day. Because I think too, once we reach that state of burnout, like it's like you're shaking almost like in this fight or flight mode where you can't even think or process. And so to imagine having to do anything, it's like decision fatigue. Like I can't imagine doing this for more than one day. So I'll have to send that to you. It's something I like tucked into my journal, which has also been a nice practice, is journaling, meditation, affirmations. Like I have some app that I listen to that's like, you are healthy, you are happy, rainbows, butterflies, you know.
Yeah, I know. It feels silly while you're doing it, but like it actually does help.
I like to do it in the morning. Sets me up for the day. Don't need to check Instagram and see all of the noise. It's just some positive things that need to come my way. Go ahead. Yes, Joanna.
Big thing. And I'm glad that you triggered this thought, because probably the biggest thing that helped me when I was in the thick of my burnout was doing a 90-day social media detox. And it's interesting because now I am taking my business online in trying to, no, I guess I can't say trying. I am educating women on how they can invest in real estate. And so it's a necessary component of my business. But at the time, it wasn't. But seeing these curated lives and images and just like the rosy cozy was giving me a lot of feelings that I needed to process. And that was another thing that I'm like, Marie Kondo, if you don't educate me or make me laugh, or you're like videos of koala bears and their babies, like I can't look at it because I can't filter it out. And so removing that one piece of noise, which is much bigger than we expect, and then as I reintroduced it, setting boundaries. So I have a timer on my phone. Social media turns off after an hour and 33 minutes. Hard stop. So I have to be very mindful with how I'm using that time on social media. And that has been huge. I read a lot of books. Even the one you sent me, Rihanna, that one, I read it in one night.
And you want to know what? The next one comes out on June 11th. So it's right around
I read that one on my Kindle afterwards. Or the second one.
Which book?
Oh, the second one? It's called The Housemaid. It's it's nonfiction. Or wait, no, it is fiction. Sorry. It is fiction, thankfully. And it was just good. Like I normally read more. I always get confused. I read nonfiction usually, and how can I be better, or mindfulness practices, whatever it is. It's like applying myself to real life. But I really wanted something that I could just get away from. I was in a book club and we read that, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the first time that a fiction book is actually clicking, as far as like, I would bring it to the dog park and read at the dog park. Like I was just so obsessed with finishing this book. And then there's another book right after that. But the third one, that one's the one that comes out on June 11th. And I pre-ordered it. So every time I go on Amazon, I can see that like there's that reminder that comes up there. Great marketing on their part. But yes, highly recommend reading The Housemaid or anything by Frida something. I'm not sure, but just look it up. You'll find
Those
it.
are really good. Yeah, the first two were great. I don't think I've been that engaged with a book series since Harry Potter, honestly. And I was like a huge, like, in high school, I'd like just get high and read Harry Potter for hours. That was like, that was me. That was my thing. And I think the way that it's written, it just pulls you in, and it's like a brain break, and you just get lost in this crazy story and all these plot twists. It was really nice. But on the topic of books, I have to say, Caitlin, you were really instrumental in helping me on my burnout journey by suggesting two books that I think every woman should read. One is called Burnout by Emily Nagoski. There's also a companion workbook. I didn't do that, but I have seen it like at Barnes and Noble. It seems like a very nice complimentary resource. And the other is called Do Less, which talks about, as women, our cycles and our, I guess I forgot all, luteal phase, follicular,
all the
whatever.
different phases.
But working with our hormones, which, I'm turning 40 next year, and like the hormone thing is a whole.
Yeah, we have the whole thing is like we have a 28-day cycle, men have a 24-hour cycle. And it's like you were talking about earlier with flow, it's like there's certain times of the month that we're going to be in more flow to be creative and create content. There's other times where it's going to be more outward, and other times where it's going to be more inward and reflective. And I just think as women, it's a really cool thing to start learning, because the couple days before your period when you hate the world, I don't know about you, but that's usually what happens for me.
Yes.
And I'm like, what is wrong with everybody? And it's like, some of that stuff is so nice to just know and track and be like, oh, that's why I'm feeling this way. And that's why I'm more social, but I actually don't want to be with a bunch of people when I'm menstruating. yeah, it's, so many books are written by men about productivity and all this stuff. And that one I just really connected with, like, oh, okay. I can do things differently.
Mm-hmm. So what's next for Joanna after Europe specifically?
Yeah, so I realized that I don't, at this point in my life, want to, self-help my way into like whatever. And I'm really focused on my quality of life, how I spend my time, with whom I spend my time. And I've been in this really creative space of, I wrote a course showing women how they can leverage their W-2 to kickstart their real estate portfolio. My goal initially was to launch it prior to going on this trip, but I realized that that would not be conducive with what I'm trying to accomplish on this trip, and like unplug simultaneously. And this is as of 3 days ago, I started a travel blog, which I never thought I would do. But when my mom died, I spent 3 years backpacking around the world, like by myself, and was in this very like crazy headspace, and it was fantastic. And I miss that so much. But traveling with kids, like, it's not a vacation, it's a family trip. Like, it's a totally different experience. But I want to capture that. I want to capture, the differences, going from backpacking to weekly corporate travel to now this slow and savoring family travel. So I made a YouTube page. My husband's like really excited. He got like a drone for us. It's called the Travel Berries. So if anybody's interested in learning about how to pack for 7 weeks for 4 people into 2 suitcases at total of 35 kilograms, follow me. I'm very proud of that. Or to learn about real estate. So my first loss, Joanna Berry, I finally uploaded a digital download with a glossary for real estate terminology. When I got started, I'm like, what is everyone talking about? There's so many acronyms flying around, and the ARV and the STR and the like LTV. What? So it's a 6-page document. You just click the button and it'll send it to your email. If anyone has any interest in that. And then stay tuned for the course. I've put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. And so I want to make sure that when I do go to launch, that I'll be present and available for questions. So I expect that to be early fall.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joanna, so much. It's been great to hear your story from burnout all the way to financial freedom and recovering, and now having this amazing trip to look forward to. I know that so many women are going to be inspired by your story, and thanks again for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me. I am really excited. I appreciate your trusting me to come on to the podcast and share about this. I think there is magic when women come together, and we all can benefit from having the conversations instead of just silently suffering and good vibing our way through life.
Totally. Well, thanks for your honesty, and hopefully somebody will be inspired to get that FU money and get out of their corporate job too.
All right. Thanks, Joanna. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, friends. That's the episode for today. We so appreciate you being here with us, and we'd love if you could leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts.
And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes, and check the show notes to sign up for the waitlist for our retreats and future coaching programs. Stay rested, friends, and talk soon.